Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about this stuff right here, which is Snyder train shelving. So I know you guys are probably familiar with this or seen about it online, but for those of you that don't have it, are wondering how it gets installed and all the little tips and tricks of installing this, that's what we're going to go over today. And as you can see behind me, I have a whole bunch of Snyder shelving already on my wall right here. We're going to be adding 2 rows at the bottom here and along this wall all the way down here, just so we get some more storage space. And we're going to be putting some across on the opposite side of the train room on a wall over there also. So we're running out of space because of these passenger sets, which take up so much room on the shelves. And I need a space for my Amtrak Acela set, so right now it's just underneath the layout, so we need to get that out on the display. So I got a bunch of new shelving in today, and we're going to show you how to install this and some just tips and tricks on using the Snyder system. So let's get to it. Okay, so as you can see here, I got a whole bunch of shelving that came in. I got 16 pieces. They either come in these cardboard tubes, or in this case it came in a rectangular package, but pretty easy. They come in 6-foot sections. That's their maximum length, and you can get them in different sizes depending if they're for O gauge or standard gauge or whatever. So I plan to get some for my standard gauge layout on the second floor at some point, but these are for O gauge. And so what I have here is a couple different things. So we've got the actual shelving itself right here. These are made out of aluminum, okay? And you can see this is for 3-rail right here. This is O gauge size. And then I actually bought a couple of these things right here, which are end caps. And we'll show you where those go. But these are really handy if you are going to use the shelves in an area where people can sort of brush by them, because the edges are sharp on these. So you can cap them off to make sure that nobody cuts themselves or do something if it's something that's you know, an area where people are walking by it or something like that. On my walls over here, I only have 2 of those little ends that I need these caps on. The rest are against the walls themselves where it turns the corner, so I don't need any end caps. But I'll show you different parts of my layout where I did use the end caps. So you can buy those. They also sell something that goes on the end here that snaps onto the rails if you want to prevent an engine from falling off if you don't use the end caps. So you have a couple different choices as far as that goes. But basically this is exactly how it comes. And then it comes with a little pack of instructions right here. And in the instructions they tell you kind of how to do the installation. But they also have these rolled pins here, which we're going to talk about and how you install them and an easy way to do that also. So those are the pieces you get with this set, and then you take it from there. And so first we got to do some measuring. We're going to do some cutting. We have to do some drilling on both the wall and the track sections, and then I'll show you how to install them. Alright, so the first thing you got to decide is obviously where you're going to put your shelves and the kind of wall that you're going into. So I'm in the basement. These are concrete block walls. So obviously I'm drilling into concrete. It doesn't matter where I drill my holes. If you're going into a piece of drywall with wood studs behind, then it's a different story because you have to make sure you're actually drilling into the studs themselves. So that's a little bit more measuring and making sure you're at the right spot. But one thing you do have to decide is the distance between the shelves as they're going down the wall. Now on mine, I did from the bottom of the shelf to the top of the next shelf right here, I did 4.5 inches. And for me, I felt like that was a good spot because, you know, different engines and cars have different heights. And so that let me get the engine on really easily and then have a little bit of a space between the top and the bottom. So it just depends what you want. You can actually set them to any height you want, but I found 4.5 inches is pretty good. So that's what we're going to use, and that's what we're going to continue down the wall here when we do our 2 shelves at the bottom. So that's all you have to decide. And then basically you're going to have to decide how many anchor points that you want on your shelves. Now for a 6-foot shelf, I use 3 anchor points. So if you can see right here, there's a gap right here between shelves. So what I do is 6 inches in from the end is where I put an anchor point from both ends, and then I measure the middle of the 6 foot section, which would be 3 feet from the end, and that's where I put my third anchor point. And so for me, I've only ever used 3 anchor points per 6 foot section, and it's been fine. And I have some heavy engines on these sections. Now, of course, this little section at the top here, which is short, there's just 2 anchor points, but on the big ones, like I've got the, you know, some really heavy O-gauge engines here. There's the Blue Comet, there's an M1A, the Hudson down here, so, and they hold it fine. They don't flex, and there's no problem with that. So it's totally up to you how many anchor points you want to put into it, because the Glenn Snyder shelves don't come with any holes. You have to drill them wherever you want them, and you can decide how many anchor points you want. And then on the shorter shelves, like here, even though this is not a full 6 foot here, let me show you, right from this joint right here all the way to the end over here, it's not a full 6 foot, but because it's long enough, I still did 3 anchor points on that. Okay, if it's a shorter section, then you may only need 2 anchor points, but it's totally up to you how many you feel comfortable with. Now, this is again block wall, so I can put my anchor points anywhere I want to because I'm just drilling into the block, right? But if you're on a stud wall, then obviously you have to do 16 inches on center or whatever your stud spacing is. So, and then you can decide how many anchor points you want. So let's talk about the supplies you're going to have to buy in addition to the shelves in order to get these shelves mounted. Okay, so you are going to need some extra things to purchase before you can mount these shelves. So for me, because I'm in the basement going through block wall, I'm going to need this. I'm going to need a, this is a 1/4 inch masonry bit that drills through concrete, has a special tip on it and everything. So I need that to drill my holes for the anchors. I'm going to need some kind of system, so I use these anchors here and screws. These are number 12s by 1 7/16 inch screws, and so these are really nice. These are pretty heavy duty. They work really well, and once I drill my hole, I just tap them in, and then these are nice heavy duty thick size screws that screw into that. Okay, and then you're going to need some type of washers. These are 1/4 inch here. I think I had some number 12s. I was having a hard time finding washers because of the shortages out there right now. So for some reason they were sold out of all the sizes I need. So I had to go to 2 different stores to get it. But basically, you're going to need washers because if your wall is not perfectly flat, when you mount your shelves, you put 1 anchor point in, but then you go to the next anchor point. If it's not completely flush against the wall, and you have a gap, you need to fill that gap, because if you just try to screw it in, it will actually twist the shelf, and so your train will not be horizontally flat going across. It'll flip up, and some of the cars will be like sort of tilted a little bit. So you're going to want to make sure you have some kind of washers that you can fill in that gap. The other thing you can get, which I don't show here, is a little tube of caulking if you're in the basement like I am, and you just want to make sure that no moisture comes through that hole. Once you get your hole drilled and you tap in your anchor, you can fill it with caulk and then put your screw in, and that'll keep it nice and sealed too. So those are the couple things you're going to need. The other thing you're going to need is some way to cut your shelving to the length that you need. And so I use a miter saw, electric miter saw, and I just zip it through real quick. It's soft aluminum. It cuts in literally a second. You know, it's like a piece of wood. And it gives you a nice, super clean edge. You can also use a hacksaw or any other tool that cuts through aluminum, but you may get a rougher and not a straight edge on it if you do it that way. So I recommend a miter saw if you have one. But if you don't, you can use a hacksaw or some other tool to cut through the aluminum to get your length. And then, of course, you're going to need a drill bit that fits the size screw that you're going through here. And this, I forget what size I use. I'll tell you once we get to that point. But you just need a drill bit so you can drill through your shelves, and that'll be your holes for your anchor points. And that's all you need as far as your extra pieces that you need to purchase. Okay, so where do I start on my wall? So basically, I know my first section is going to be a 6-foot section, right? So I can measure from the end of the wall to wherever I'm going to be about 3 feet. And so I'll just basically, all I do is I take a little pencil right here, and I think it's going to be like right here about. Doesn't have to be exact, but I'm just making a mark right there. So that's my center point of my first shelf. And then I'm going to take my tape measure, just put it against the bottom here, and I'm going to go exactly 4.5 inches down from there and make a horizontal mark, right? So that is my height between the two different rails. And so I'm going to take a piece of blue painter's tape, and all I do is I just put it along that line real quick. So this is going to be my, basically my point where I'm going to say, okay, this is where the bottom, or excuse me, the top of my rail is going to be. So it's the top of the rail that you're installing against the distance from the bottom of the one above it, right? And that's 4.5 inches. So this is going to be my distance, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole 3 feet in my shelf first. Then I'm going to put the shelf up here with a level on it to level it out and mark where the hole is going to be drilled in. I'm not going to do anything else for any other holes. The first thing I'm going to do is just get this hole drilled, and then what I'm going to do is mount it and then tighten it up a little, just snug it, and then I'm going to level the shelf out and then mark the holes for the other 2 anchor points so it's perfectly level. So first thing we got to do is we got to drill our holes in our shelves. So let's go see how we do that. Alright, so now we got to drill our holes into our shelving, and what I usually do is on the floor I just put a bunch of plastic down to capture all the shavings, and I have this little cart here that I drill into, which kind of captures all the shavings to so it doesn't make a huge mess. If you're doing this indoors, right, these little aluminum shavings will get everywhere, and they're going to be stuck in your carpet and your clothes and everything else, so be careful that, because they're going to be sharp edges. Now you can do this outside. It's winter here in the Northeast. I'm always freezing my butt off because I'm a skinny guy, so not my ideal to go outside and drilling holes all day long. So I'm doing it here in the basement, and this is just one of the ways I do it. But just a quick tip, you might want to lay some plastic down. That way you can just roll it back up and throw it in the garbage, and all your bits will be inside there. So, but that's what we need to do first. And so this is really easy because it is soft aluminum. So really all I do is I make a mark on the back of the shelf. So here's the shelf, right? There's the back edge that you're mounting everything by. I'm just making a mark at the halfway mark, and then at the ends I do 6 inches from the ends. And so then you take your drill bit, and so the size of your drill bit's going to be dictated by the size of your screw. I always make the hole just a little bit bigger than the screw, only because I'm drilling into concrete, and when you're drilling into concrete, sometimes the bit will move a little bit left, right, up or down, because it takes a second to, you know, start the hole and get the grip. So I need a little slack, so that if for some reason the hole is just a little bit off, I can move the shelf around. So I make the hole just one size bigger than my screw. Now the thing about the shelving is they have these lines inside on the back of the shelf that it's like a little ridge that you put your tip of your drill bit in so it doesn't move around. So basically right here, it's the upper line, the closest to the top of the back edge here that I'm drilling into. So I just line up my mark and then put my tip of my drill bit right into this groove right here, and it'll drill right into it. And so what I do is I basically just keep it in the center here. I put my tip of my drill bit right here inside that groove and just start drilling. Now I go slow so that and I'm using pressure, but basically so the bits don't fly all over the place, because if you go really fast your bits are going to fly all over the place, right? And I just kind of go slow so it goes through, and then hopefully it'll just cut right through very slow, and then I don't jam down through the track and scratch the surface on the inner part there, right? So you can sort of feel it when it's going through, like right there. And then there it is. So I've drilled through I just go like that, all the bits fall down, and I'm ready to go. And I haven't scratched the other side of the track here, right? And that's it. That's all you have to do. So you just drill your holes through, and you're ready to go. So you can see on my screw right here, goes through. I've got a little bit of play right there. If for some reason you need a little more play, you could obviously take your drill bit like this and just sort of go around like that, just to give it a little more room. Cut off the little shavings off the edge, and you're ready to go. So basically what I have to do is, for 2 pieces of the 6-foot sections, I have to drill these 6 holes first. Then I have to measure my secondary section I need to add on, and then cut that and do the same thing. So let me get all these holes drilled and we'll come back. Alright, so now I got all my holes drilled in my shelving. I'm ready to go here. So all I'm going to do basically is put this shelf against the wall to the left, and then put this right here to line up with my tape mark at the top. Right? Pretty simple. And then I'm just going to take a level and I'm going to put it on the top here and just get it basically level. Now, if you have 2 people, this is so much easier, obviously. I put it on the top edge of the rail, and basically I just check the level and I kind of level it out. And then I check the tape mark and see, am I close to where I want to be with the tape mark. And basically I just find my spot right here, make sure I'm pretty level. And then it doesn't have to be exact on this first one as far as the level goes. You're just trying to get it close to where you want it to be. Then I take my pencil and I'm just going to make a round mark right inside that same hole right there. And this is going to be my first drill hole. Now do not drill any other holes in the wall until you get this first one done, and I'll show you why in a second. So let me get the drill and drill this block. Okay, so I forgot one thing. Before I actually start my drilling into the block here, I use actually a punch here and a hammer, and what I do is I just put it right in the center of the hole and I give it a nice hard tap in the block to start a hole right here. The reason I do that is because when you're dealing with concrete, and you start your drilling into the wall, the bit is going to want to walk around because you don't have a spot. It's not like wood where the tip of the drill bit is sort of digging into wood right away when you put pressure on it. This will just try to walk around, and then your hole will be off of where you want it. So take a punch into your block first to get a little hole there, then you can start drilling. Okay, so now we're ready to make our drill. Now this is actually a special drill. It's called a hammer drill, and so what it does is it hammers at the same time as it's drilling, and this is obviously for things like concrete block and everything, but if you're just doing regular walls, you guys don't have to worry about this. This is the biggest pain of the whole project right here when you're going through these walls, but alright, so I've got my hole drilled, so now I'm going to just take my anchors, put them right here. We're just going to tap them in. If you have the right size hole, everything should go in pretty easy. There shouldn't be really any problem with you tapping them in. And that's pretty much it. So there you go. Now we're just going to take our screw and screw it in. So we're going to take our shelf, and this is just a temporary hold, by the way. You're going to line up your shelf, and I can already see just by the shelf against the wall here, there's a gap right here, right? So I'm going to want to put a couple washers before I tighten this up. So let me go get some washers. Alright, so I just put 2 washers on the back here. I'm going to line up my shelf right here into the hole. I'm going to take a nut driver tool. This works much easier. And then tack it against the wall here. Now my purpose here is not to make it tight yet. My purpose here is to get it level. So now that I have it sort of on the wall in the center position, I'm going to take my level and put it on my track here, and then I'm going to level it to make sure that it's going level across the wall. So it needs a little adjustment right there. So right there is perfectly level across the entire shelf here. So now, because I have it perfectly level, my screw holes on the end over here and the end over there, I can mark it on the wall, and then I'll follow the same process. I'll use the punch to punch a hole, and then I'll drill 2 holes, and I'll be ready to permanently affix it to the wall. Alright, so I got all 3 of my hole drill. I got my anchors in here. One thing I like to do, if you are dealing with the same materials as I am in the basement, and you just want to absolutely be sure you're not going to have any kind of little moisture leaks or anything. I usually take a little caulking, right, and I squeeze it in the hole and then around the edge of the anchor, right, just to kind of seal this off. And I do that on each hole. And I'll just take my finger and spread it around to make it smooth around the edge of the hole and stuff like that. You don't have to do this. It's just an extra little precaution. But if you're dealing with a basement wall and there could be moisture coming in, it'll just help you seal it. Okay, and that's what it'll look like once you get it all sealed up and ready to go. So then all you do is you line up your shelf on the wall, put your screws in, and when you put your shelf against the wall, you're going to be able to tell pretty quickly how many washers you need. You're just going to lay it flat, right? And it's going to follow the natural curve of the wall. Like here I can see I probably need 2. On the beginning over here I don't need any, and at that end I probably need maybe 3, so I can see the way the wall is kind of going. So just put your washers behind it and make sure when you tighten up your screw that you don't see the shelf flex at all. So if it flexes, it means you need another washer behind there to make everything even. And that's pretty much it. So let me get my screws in and we'll take a look at the final product. Okay, so there is the finished shelf basically. And then what you do is you just put your level on, make sure everything's perfect. So you can see here we are spot on right here as far as our level goes. So here we have the anchor point has no washer. The one in the middle here has actually 2 washers. You can see the small gap back here, right, as the wall sort of bends because it hits this seam right here. And then over here we have about 3 washers. And what should happen is when you're looking at the shelf, like over the length of it, is it shouldn't twist, right? It should look level all the way down the wall. If you're getting to a point where it looks like it's bending one way or the other, twisting, that means that you're pulling that in too far and you need to put another spacer behind it. And that's pretty much it. And this will be the same whether you're doing it on drywall or block walls or whatever it may be. But you can see here, that's 3 anchor points, right? Super strong. I don't have to do pretty much anything with it. It's like I can push down on it. It's not moving at all. Now, the shelving does have a natural tilt to the back. So in other words, it's not going to be perfectly horizontal. It's going to be tilted just a hair up towards the back. And that's on purpose so that the trains don't fall off the front of the shelf, right? It gives a little bit of an angle back so they're sort of their weight goes towards the wall. And that's pretty much it. So that's how you get the basic shelf put on the wall there. So you can see we have a new one at the bottom here. Now we do have to extend this out to the end here, so we have to cut a smaller piece and then join them together, which will be our next step. But first, let me get the second shelf that I want to get on this wall, the last one on the bottom here. I'll get that mounted, and then we'll come back and we'll show you how you actually join these sections together to make one long shelf. All right, so to finish out our shelf here, we've cut a small piece here down from the main piece. We got our holes drilled in it already, so we're ready to go. But the thing about it is you have to join it together with the shelf that's already on the wall. So basically, when they come here, right, we got to line up the holes. But what you want to do is make sure that these 2 sections join together so they're even, so when you put your trains on it, you don't have a bump there. And so what Glenn Snyder does is they give you these little roll pins. And they're pins that are just split on the one side here. And basically all you do is you slide 2 of them, one on the outer, one on the inner rail here. You tap them on, and then you take the other piece and you tap it on there, and that's what keeps the 2 pieces level with each other when they're on the wall. And then you can mark your holes and then drill your holes for your screws that mount it to the wall. Now, originally, this latest batch that I got seemed to have changed a little bit. It looks like they're making them out of possibly a thinner aluminum, which will make them easier to put on. These have always been like a sort of a steel pins. And so one of the big complaints about these, I think, from people was that they had a hard time getting them on the rails. And so the way you do that is you take a punch and you just put it on the end here, and then you tap down with a hammer like on a piece of wood to expand the end. Then just take a pliers and twist it off, and do that on both sides. that will give you enough space to actually slide it onto the end. Because right now, if I try to slide it on, the gap is not big enough to clear that, and it won't go on. Now, you don't want to make it too big because you want them to be snug so that when you slide your other section on, they stay nice and tight. So all I do is, my point is that it looks like they made it out of a different material that's a little softer and thinner. That might make it easier to get these pins on than they were before. But even before, when they were the solid steel, I didn't have any problems if I actually did this little process here that I'm going to show you. So let's show you how we do that. Alright, so all I do is I take my pin, I put it in my punch right here, get a hammer, I just put it down on the board, and I just give it a couple taps. Like that, 2 taps, and you can see here, if we look at the split, I don't know if you can see that in the camera. Let me see if it'll focus. Focus! I don't know if you can see it, but anyway, the split is a little more on this end now than it was on the other end. And then I just take pliers, basically, and I grab it and, you know, just twist it off the punch, and that's it. And then I do that on the other side. So I just put the punch in the other side, put it down, give it a couple taps. That's all you need. Splits it out a little bit, and then I pull it off with the pliers, and I'm ready to go. And now it should go onto my shelf easier. So if I take my pin now, it should sort of slide on there. If you don't have it big enough, right, and the space is not big enough to get it on there, you'll know. But if you put it on here and you tap it, and you put it about halfway in like that, and that's all there is. And then when you put your other shelf on, after you get your holes drilled, you're just going to tap it on, and then it'll keep those 2 halves joined. Now, if you don't make your gap big enough on your roll pin, when you tap it on, this is going to want to move. So make sure that you do enough punches. Looks like I needed to do 3 instead of 2 here on these. So when you actually do your little punch thing, just do. So if I did 3, it's a little bit wider, right? And then I can get this off here, and then I have a much wider gap on the end there, and that will be better. So you can play with it till you find out exactly how many punches you need to widen it up. But once you find out, you'll get the hang of it, and then basically you'll be able to tap them on. Now what I do is I put 1 pin in the front and I tap them together, and then I mark my holes after I put my level on, and I know where my holes are going to be drilled for in my next section. But when you want to get them apart, it's not that easy because this is a tight fit and they don't just come apart. So if you take a screwdriver and you just sort of pry it between, then it'll come apart a lot easier. You'll see it'll start coming apart here, so you can sort of slide it out because it is a tight fit. So just FYI, you got to play with it a little bit till you get it out. But if you take a little screwdriver to kind of pry against it, then you'll get it out easier, and that's it. And now I can drill my holes in the rest of the wall and get this ready to go on. Okay, and the last thing is these little end caps if you decide to purchase them. I purchase them on any ends that are exposed where somebody could snag them walking by. They also prevent the trains from going off if your end is not against the wall, like these couple of shelves. So you just kind of put them on. It's just a friction fit, basically, and you just snag them on. And you can take a little hammer if you want to and just do a final tap. Make sure they're perfectly on, and that's pretty much it. And you got these nice little end caps on the shelves. Okay guys, so that's it. So that's how you install Glenn Snyder aluminum shelving. And everybody has their favorite shelving system, I'm sure. Some build their own. I really love this shelving system. I use it everywhere and I highly recommend it. What I really like about it is that it disappears into the wall and really shows off the trains, as you can see from this wall right here. I've got my Amtrak Acela set now finally displayed instead of being under the layout. Now that I have 2 new shelves here, I actually have a little extra space on the end, but it almost takes up 2 full 6.5-foot shelves or so. So long train. But yeah, so I'm just going to finish out the rest of the wall here so I have some more storage. But I hope this video helped you to understand how this shelving system works, how easy it is to install, and how good it looks once it's up and installed on the wall. So as always, if you like this video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and I'll see you guys next time.